Kehonit. Ito has twice Zani that education, but echo over Jensen though the quay jail kit a kid that neither. So which it done that I get a kid that over Jensen or the constituents that Edo Jananda that echo Edo Benashmi. It also does in the echo. She Honorable Stewart echo the illegal Dalia, lots of hot as Nihizato, the piece of love at it. But a journey, Nicoba Hill, Jananda, Chow.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Keown Begay Jr.
Chairman, Nana. I guess nobody didn't catch my last statement, so let me just say it again. Arizona Cardinal won this weekend. But anyway, Kadosh Deje, Hana need national key on the Ada Shab, I need a che other this cheat need a shanale. Ado Slow Sandatli, but had the Shaki a Luma on Touchable Gap, Salanican with Noslin and Miniform, lead out in chair, Dr. St. Chairman? Yeah, thank you.
Honorable Begay, we did catch that. My wife even smiled, and she's a big fan of the Cardinals as well. So, thank you. Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, good morning, colleagues. I heard that too. Cardinal, I watched that game actually. Good job, Cardinal. Staff, good morning. Everyone on this call. Mark Freeland is here. The Sunny Tony is not a key on the Asia. Sanjay Kennedy, the Shea, a lot of nation. Please also call the Shaya. Represent 8 chapters out of Eastern Navajo. Crown Point, don't know how to ski. Don't say I had Bastante, White Rock, Lake Valley, Herfino, and Nayeza, as well as the 23 other chapters on RDC. So, good morning to one and all, and blessings to you and your families as we have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Honorable Stewart.
Good morning again, Shana, Chairman. Aaron, the Constitution, Yaja, Thomas Walker, Aaron, the Corner, Shana, Cat, Aaron, Chainana, Mr. Tahi, Aaron, Shmayaja, Kenana. Aaron is not angry this morning on a funny get low, not a Arnold. Shaya Wilson, C. Stewart Jr., A. Shadow, Quitsopni, A. Nanish Ejikachini, Bashas Chin, Kachini, Dasha, Dog, between the Chanela. Out of Batkadashagi A itself, so Dobek El Cheat, when it's a little that out of 45 agency, the representation for Resource Development Committee. Good morning and happy Thanksgiving to you, your loved ones, your families, your relatives, and the communities out there across the Navajo Nation, and our community members are in the military as well, and those living abroad. So,
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Honorable Daniels.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, Honorable colleagues, Resources and Development Committee, good morning. Other than his staff, Ms. Whitty and also Ms. Khan, OLC, I didn't Mr. Tai, Ado kodo shesh kahat fish kodo dainos flagi kodo kodo she dainos flago kodo here kodo ado for days the show I see here this morning kodo he been by here ado kodo she Herman Daniels Jr. Ado and Shenke but ani ado kitchen she ne dashe it's got for a dashanala ado to head lini now kaida neda dashe chego Ado nana nagay da banash na sige ya nagay olje to not if on shot to aron that fluffy can eba banash na shkado. So that is your doubt with me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Daniel. Shay recognized in Shiawasan and Snow Zekachi, Bashish Chinson, Abitlash, Cherokee, Ani, the Shinal Thought and Enshla. 6 chapters, Banash, Nishige, Hogback, San Juan, and Hanzara, Perfulum, Burnham, and Newcomb. Welcome, everybody, to RDC meeting. On RDC staff, Mr. Tahi.
Good morning, chair members of RDC. My name is Rodney Tahi. I'm Kiani and Senja Kenneth. I'm originally from Steamboat, Arizona. And I too want to thank Wilson Stewart for the prayer this morning. It's very enlightful to know that we start each day with a prayer, especially our meetings. And I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving this week and spend time with your family and friends. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. Ms. Woody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and RDC members. Yat ben Teresa Woody, she had top bunch for the best question here on it. She chatted and a Janeta Shanala. Ado yat need the dish deep in the happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your holidays and enjoy your time with your family. And God bless you all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Woody. Ms. Khan.
Oh, yeah, Resources and Development Committee members. Everybody who is on the phone. And this is a special time of the year when as my father said, he really enjoys this time of the year because this is when we actually expressed our appreciation and joy for being together as family and to each other as complete strangers. And even though he had a traditional upbringing, that is why he saw this as a special time of the year in which people actually expressed feelings from the heart and found it as a time to do this. And I always think of this also as a wonderful time of the year to hear wonderful words and allowing ourselves to express thanks and love to those around us. And that's what I do for today. Mariana Khan da shijine. Done and the slinigi a taught he had leaning nishle. But Annie Bashish Chin, Ash Chi Dashache, Sanja Kina Dashanala. Towards this Ado, Tejan be Tohade, Nasha, Ado Kudet Nihit Beshbe Hashne. Thank you very much for that beautiful prayer. This thing, as always, we have the beautiful capacity to speak and Navajo language, to hear the words in the prayers in the Navajo language, and also, of course, beautiful prayers in the English language. There's a very, very valuable, and I'm so glad that we share that with each other. Thank you, one and all, and I am going to go on mute now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan. Ms. Diaco, are you on the call?
Yes, Chairman, I'm here.
Introductions.
Okay, thank you, Chairmaness and members of the Resources and Development Committee. I thought by Henson could also thought Jono aya kato nahat ado nantikin ben nachet aya the whole. So I really appreciate that. We really appreciate that, and so just wanted to express the gratitude as well. Ado to zenigi thought shanai here in Chicago. Shea Melinda Arviso Siako Yan Shiedo Tsina Jenin Shlon Kia Ani Bashichin Twitchini Dashichedo Dashini Dashanella Legislative Staff Assistant for Speaker Damon here in Winter Rock, Arizona. And as always, thank you for having us on the call. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Siako. Do we have anybody from the President's Office? Division of Community Development?
Good morning, Chair.
Yes. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Chair, members of Resource and Development Committee, and everybody that's listening in. This is David Stover from Office of the President, Vice President, Executive Staff Assistant. The chief in Schneidel, last chief, but she's chain, and that's a chief, to the chief, and that's another. Though, as you that day, but you hold the Shigito, as you that, she was that, I just not, like what you young. She doesn't know how to take a higgy. Though next week, and another higgy, say, what a So, thank you and happy Thanksgiving to Resource and Development Committee, everybody that's on the line.
Thank you, Mr. Pilfred. Do we have anybody from the Division of Community Development?
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to all honorable members of RDC, for the meeting today. I want to wish all of our leaders a good, safe and healthy Thanksgiving. We also celebrated Veterans Day, so we're extending appreciation to all veterans throughout the Navajo Nation and those still serving our Navajo Nation and our country. We appreciate all of our staff working hard and doing their part to keep their communities safe. We're still seeing some increases in COVID numbers, and our hospitals are reaching some capacity, and just want everyone to be safe, keep our Thanksgiving time sacred and our family time sacred, and spread positive news, good information to one another, and continue to work with each other. We appreciate the collaboration and working partnerships between executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch. This is Ms. Yellowman, Pearl Yellowman. I'm joined here with ASC, and we'll be on the line this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Do we have anybody from the Controller's Office? OMB? Division of Economic Development? CIA? Anybody else on the call wishes to introduce himself? None. Sheila, Mr. Tahi, we're down to the agenda approval. Could you read the agenda, please?
Chair members of RDC, the agenda reads as follows. Resource and Development Committee of the 24th Navajo Nation Council special meeting, Monday, November 22nd, 2021 at 9 a.m. Proposed agenda, presiding, Honorable Ricky Nez, chairperson, Honorable Thomas Walker Jr., vice chairperson. Location via telecommunications. 1, call the meeting to order, roll call, invocation, and announcements. Number 2, recognizing guests and visiting official. Number 3, reviewing and approving the agenda. Number 4, reviewing and approving the journals. None. Number 5, receiving report, update report on the Division of Community Development, Office of the Controller, and Office of Management and Budget on legislation number 0206-21 as it relates to providing updated documents to the legislation. B, report from the Division of Economic Development on the railroad tracks and the aftermath of the closure of Navajo Generating Station. 6, old business, legislation 0207-21, an action relating to resource and development, approving amendment number 1 between the Navajo Nation and Mid-America Pipeline Company, LLC, for the number 701 pipeline, sponsor Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., co-sponsor Honorable Seth Damon. 7, new business, legislation 0228-21, an action relating to Resource and Development Committee, Nambikit Committee, approving the proposed consent decree regarding the closed Fort Wingate Depot activity, sponsor Honorable Edmund Yazzie. B, legislation 0240, 21, an action relating to resource and development and budget and finance, approving the change in Exhibit D to resolution number CAP-35-18 for Coyote Canyon chapter by deleting certain projects and purchasing and approving the use of funds for the purchase of a new equipment and for the chapter parking lot landscape project instead. Sponsor, Honorable Pernell Halona. C, approving a 2-day RDC strategy session at Twin Arrows Casino Resort for the recommended date on Monday, December 27th and Tuesday, December 28th, 2021 at 9 a.m. D, approving a work session with Navajo Environmental Protection Agency to discuss the proposed water reuse, proposed change in the Navajo EPA plan of operation and other Navajo EPA updates for the recommended date of January 3rd, 2022 at 1 p.m. at Fire Rock Casino. E, approving a work session with Navajo Environmental Protection Agency, Navajo Abandoned Landmines, Navajo Uranium Workers Program, US EPA, and US Department of Energy to discuss the Navajo Abandoned Uranium Mine update for the recommended date of January 4th, 2022 at 9 a.m. at Fire Rock Casino. F, approving to reschedule the leadership meeting with the Navajo Environmental Protection Agency and the 5 agencies on grazing areas where there is illegal dumping of trash for the recommended date of January 6th, 2022 at 9 a.m. G, approving to reschedule the leadership meeting with DED, DCD, DNR, DOT, and EPA to develop plans for the construction of office building in all 5 agencies for the recommended date of January 7th, 2022 at 9 a.m. 8, close the meeting announcements and adjournment. Chair, that's the proposed agenda read into the record. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second.
Chairman Callan.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Second by?
Daniel.
Honorable Daniels. Thank you. Any comments or questions on the main motion? Any additions? Deletions? Samantha, I believe legislation number 207 is under old business, which is correct. So I was wondering about that, but it's good. And any other comments or questions? If none, we'll go ahead and vote on it. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Chairman, I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Callan votes green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland? Honorable Freeland? Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. We have an agenda before us. And also, we have 3 legislations on the agenda this morning and 2 reports. Is there a motion to suspend the floor rules to go to new business?
Chairman, motion to suspend floor rules to go legislations.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Stewart, motion, second by?
Callan.
Honorable Begay, thank you. Any comments or questions? None. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Callan votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland? Honorable Stewart.
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland. We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries to suspend the floor rules and go to new business. Mr. Tahi, we're down to new business. Legislation 0207-21, old business, I'm sorry. We'll go to legislations first. Shananta. Di Koro, legislations. Honorable Stewart is on the call with us today. Honorable Stewart, do you have your agents with you?
Let me see here. Are my agents on for this legislation that we're on for? This is going to be for the, which one was this one for again? Basin or no? This is for the Mid-America pipeline. Anybody from Mid-America online?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. This is Kitty Wood. I am on the line. Excuse me. I am on the line with the land manager for Mid-America Pipeline, Mr. Cody Trevino.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tahi, could you read this in for the record, please?
Chair, members of RDC, this legislation was read into the record on October 27th, 2021 during the regular RDC meeting. This legislation had a motion by Mark A. Freeland and a second by Key Allen Begay. There was one amendment made to this legislation. The motion was made by Mark A. Freeland and second by Thomas Walker Jr. This legislation was tabled also on October 27th, 2021. Main motion was Herman Daniels, second by Key Allen Begay, with a vote of 4-0. It was tabled for the reason of Resource and Development Committee needed 30 days for the Land Department to do a reassessment of consideration that would be done. And the reconsideration has been completed. And I believe they're on the line, and Mariana Khan has also worked with them to get this amendment taken care of. Chair, that's the legislation for 0207. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shananta. There was a motion. The main motion was by Honorable Freeland, second by Honorable Kialan Begay, and then it was tabled by motion by Honorable Freeland and second by Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second to bring this back for discussion.
Chairman, before we make a motion, Freeland?
Go ahead,
Chairman, I'd like to offer that motion, but before I do, I want to see if I can get my vote counted for green. I'm on my way into Windrock from Crown Point. I have really bad cell service, so thank you, Chairman. I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, this is Delegate Daniels. I'll second.
Honorable Daniels seconds to bring this back up for discussion. Any comments, questions? None. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote, sir?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Kell votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Daniels?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green, Chairman.
Honorable. Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. We will recall this legislation back for discussion. So, Honorable Stewart, has there been updates to this legislation?
Oops, I thought it was mute. Good morning, Shania, Chairman. There has been a couple of updates on this one, and I will ask Shamam, Ms. Khan, for assistance on the part of that part, Chennai, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Khan?
Mr. Chair, this is Mariana Khan. I was asked, I had been forwarded an amendment. I was forwarded the language for an amendment by Rowena Jeremiah. If you would have her explain the purpose for this particular amendment, and I will send it to you. That's my suggestion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, for that. Mr. Tahi, could you send that language for the amendment to us?
Chair members of RDC, yes, I'll do that.
Mr. Chair, this is Mariana Khan. I am trying to send the amendment. I will send it right now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, hopefully that
Yes, Ms. Khan?
Hopefully that has been sent. I have sent it to members of the Resources and Development Committee and to Mr. Tahi and Ms. Teresa Woody and Rowena Jeremiah. Essentially, the request was, okay.
Go ahead.
Essentially, the request was to draft an amendment to exchange the exhibit in legislation 0207-21, exchange the exhibit in that legislation for a new exhibit, and the attachments to the amendments that you now have come with hopefully a page 1, and in another attachment on the same email is page 2. So there are 2 pages to exhibit 1, and they are there as one attachment has the first page, the second attachment has the second page. And that is the language, the amendment that was supplied by the Minerals Department, and Ms. Jeremiah can explain that further. Mr. Chair, I will go on mute now.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Mr. Tahi, I believe I did receive my amendment language from Ms. Khan. So could you please read that into the record, please?
Chair, members of RDC, this amendment to legislation number 0207-21. 1. Exchange the new Exhibit 1 for Exhibit 1 that is attached to legislation number 0207-21. 2. The Office of Legislative Service and the Office of Legislative Counsel are hereby authorized to make edits to this legislation as necessary and appropriate to correct the grammatical and to correct numerical errors, so long as such edits accurately reflect the committee's intent in approving this legislation. Chair, that's the amendment read into the record for legislation number 0207-21.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tahi. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second for Amendment 1. Motion. Honorable Begay, thank you. Second by?
No, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Stewart. Let me give some time over to Ms. Rowena Cheremiah so she can expound on this. Ms. Cheremiah.
Good morning, Chairman Nez and members of RDC. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we
Okay,
can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the original amount for the 701 pipeline, the nation's portion of the 701 pipeline, was reassessed from its original consideration. What the basis for the original consideration was on was, we gave some discounted amounts to Mid-America because it was during COVID. It was at the time when oil prices had slumped, the economy had slumped. So we wanted to assist the producers on Navajo and the purchasers, and thereby the Navajo Nation in this recovery. That was a while back. So when the legislation came up for approval again, we were reminded that of the BIA regulations, what had to be taken into account. So we went back and reassessed the amount. We took a look at the remaining years of the original right-of-way, which is 15 years. We took a look at what has already been paid because Mid-America paid up front for this 20-year right-of-way back 15 years or, 15 years ago. So 5 years ago, I'm sorry. So we did the reassessment, and that's what you're looking at now. And we're comfortable with the amount.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cheremiah, for that. Honorable members of RDC, are there any comments or questions on Amendment 1?
Mr. Chair, this is Mariana Connick. Thank you much. Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear that we are looking at the same document. I usually get an amendment to a document with all of the pages included in one document, and this one has come in documents, and I want to make sure that both pages are there, and I'm not sure I have both pages there. I think I might have sent just page 2, because I have 12 KB. I see 12 KB for both of them, and I just need to get reassurance that I have sent the right both pages. And I'm sorry about this confusion. I think I've just sent the second page on both ones. So I need to forward the both pages. And if Ms. Cheremiah would also give the amount so that we have the amounts on the record. Mr. Chair, the change in the two Exhibit A's, old Exhibit A for new Exhibit A, and if she would state the consideration changes, then those figures, so that that is reflected in the minutes of the meeting, so that we make sure that the correct documents are attached to the legislation. That for clarity purposes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Ms. Jeremiah, could you please provide some of these documents to leadership as well as our attorney? And also, for the record, could you provide the amount on the changes for Exhibit A? Therefore, it will reflect the discussion into the minutes of this meeting today, Ms. Jeremiah.
Yes, Chairman Nez. The original assessment was $350,000. The reassessment is $478,345.45.
Thank you, Ms. Jeremiah, for that. Certainly appreciate that. Ms. Khan, will that suffice? Ms. Khan?
Mr. Chair, yes, that will suffice, that she has stated the amount that will be changed page 1, and I will forward to you the page 1, and that does make it very clear. And if Ms. Jeremiah, I'm sure that you have that particular email that you sent to me with both those pages. If you would send that to Mr. Mr. Tahi, so that he has the correct page 1. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that once we have it in the record, the amount that is being changed, and the when Mr. Tahi gets that, both pages, and he can check it, and then that should be sufficient to make sure we are that the Resources and Development Committee is approving the correct page 1. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Ms. Jeremiah?
Yes, Chairman Nez.
May you send those to...
I did send the document to Mr. Tahi.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Tahi.
I did receive the document with the stated amount in it, the new Exhibit 1. I did send it out to the entire Resource and Development Committee for the record also. So you guys should have it right now.
Okay. Mr. Tahi, do you need to read that into the record as well?
Chair, the new Exhibit I can read the whole thing into the record.
Okay, thank you.
Exhibit 1, Amendment Number 1 to the right-of-way between Navajo Nation and Mid-America Pipeline Company, LLC, for the number 701 pipeline. This amendment number 1 is the right-of-way agreement between the Navajo Nation and Mid-America Pipeline Company, LLC, for the number 701 pipeline is made and entered into the effective date of blank date and of blank 2000 blank the effective date by and between the Navajo Nation and MAPL. Recitals A, the nation and MAPL, collectively the parties, entered into a certain ROW between the nation and MAPL for the number 701 pipeline pursuant to Navajo Nation Council Resolution number RDCN-835-15, and such agreement was forwarded to the Bureau of Indian Affairs for its approval under the Indian Minerals Development Act of 1982 by letter date December 3rd, 2015, by Mr. Alcazar Zaman, Director, Minerals Department. B, the parties' mutual desire to amend such ROW to facilitate the mutual benefit pipeline operation standard subject to such ROW on the terms and conditions set forth. Now, therefore, in consideration to the above recital of the goods and value consideration, the receipt and equity of which are hereby acknowledged by the parties agree to the following agreement. 1, Section 2 of the ROW is amended and adding clause F, which reads as follows: the nation agrees to follow all effective pipeline and related facilities be utilized not only for the transport of natural gas liquids, but also for the transport of natural gas and any and all liquid petroleum products, including but not limited to crude oil and all liquid products refined or derived from crude oil. And the MAPL shall have the right to select the direction of the flow of the product without the approval of the nation, and will notify the nation of any such changes in the direction of the flow. Number 2, the nation and AMPL have agreed that MAPL shall make one upfront payment of $478,345.45 to compensate the nation for allowing MAPL to flow any petroleum products through the pipeline, allowing MAPL to reverse the direction of the flow of the pipeline at will, but only after notifying the nation. This payment shall be for the period of one time when this amendment is approved until the expiration of the agreement. 3, the remainder of the agreement shall remain in full force and effect. In witness thereof, the parties have executed this amendment, number 1, effective as of the effective date. Then it lists the nations, the operator, and their certification of approval. Chair, that's Exhibit 1, read into the record.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tahi. Honorable Kealan Begay and Honorable Stewart, do you concur to add this as a part of the amendment?
Chairman Kealan concurs as read of the proposed amendment. Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
I concur, Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable members of RDC, any comments or questions on Amendment 1? None. We'll go ahead and put it to a vote. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Chair, I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Kealan votes green.
Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries for Amendment 1. Back to the main motion. Honorable members of RDC, are there any other comments or questions? None. Hatkusila. We're back to the main motion, Shananta. That main motion was by Honorable Freeland, seconded by Honorable Kealan Begay Jr. There's no further comments or questions. We'll put it to a vote. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote, sir?
Chairman, I vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kealan Begay Jr.
Chairman Kealan votes green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels.
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland.
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart.
Green.
We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries for legislation 0207-21. Thank you, Honorable Stewart, and also Ms. Wood. Thank you.
Thank you, Shana.
Okay. Shananta, we're down to the next legislation under new business 0228-21. Honorable Chairman Edmund Yossi, are you on the call? Honorable Freeland, did you have a chance to co-sign the legislation?
No, Chairman, I didn't. I'm actually almost into Windrock.
Okay, we'll move down to legislation 0240-21. Honorable Halona, are you on the call, sir? Once, twice, 3 times. And we'll go to C, approving a 2-day RDC strategy session at Twin Arrows Casino Resort. The recommended date is December 27 on a Monday, and then Tuesday the 28th. And let's have a motion and a second.
Chairman Keelan.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Is there a second?
Here, I second.
Okay. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? There's already a date of December 27 and 28, Monday and Tuesday, starting at 9 o'clock each day. No questions. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
All right, green tonight.
Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. They're not voting. Motion carries. Next, approving a work session under D with Navajo EPA to discuss the proposed water reuse, proposed changes in the Navajo EPA plan of operation, and other Navajo EPA updates. The recommended date of January 3rd at 1 o'clock at Fire Rock Casino, which is in Gallup. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second.
Chairman Keelan.
Thank you. Second by?
Here, I second.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Any comments, questions? None? Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Keelan votes green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Motion carries. E, approving a work session with Navajo Environmental Protection Agency, Navajo Abandoned Mine Land, Navajo Uranium Workers Program, U.S. EPA and U.S. Department of Energy to discuss the Navajo Abandoned Uranium Mine update for the recommended date of January 4, 9 a.m. at Fire Rock Casino. 2 days in a row. And let's have a motion and a second.
Daniel.
Motion.
Keelan.
Honorable Begay, thank you. Second by?
Stewart.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Any comments, questions? I hear none. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Keelan votes green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels?
I vote in favor.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland? Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland? We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. F, approving to reschedule the leadership meeting with Navajo Environmental Protection Agency and the 5 agencies on grazing areas where there is illegal dumping of trash for the recommended date of January 6, 9 a.m. And let's have a motion.
Chairman. Freeland.
Yes.
And I'll vote green on the
Freeland.
last one. Sorry, Chairman. I was muted.
Okay. Honorable Freeland votes on the last item E. So the vote changes from 4 in favor to 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. We haven't had any motion for F yet, so we'll have that change there. Thank you. F, let's have a motion and a second.
Freeland.
Honorable Freeland and Honorable Begay. Any questions? None. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Begay? Honorable Daniel?
Chair?
Yes.
Kealan Vigay send a text message. He says he's vote green on F.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Begay votes green on F with his text message. Honorable Daniels?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart? Honorable Stewart? We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. We're down to G. Approving to reschedule the leadership meeting with DED, DCD, DNR, and DOT and EPA to develop plans for the construction of office buildings in all 5 agencies for the recommended date of January 7. And then let's have a motion and a second. We had scheduled this earlier, but cancel motion. May everybody please mute your phones. Motion, please.
Chair, I motion.
Thank you. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, second by.
Daniel.
Honorable Daniels, thank you. Any comments, questions? I hear none. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Green. I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay? Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart? Honorable Begay?
Chairman Kell, what's green?
Thank you. Honorable Stewart? We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. And let's go back up to legislation. 0240-21. Honorable Halona, are you present? Honorable members of RDC?
Chair,
Yes.
I see Mr. Halona online. I asked him to unmute his phone.
Honorable Halona? Honorable Halona?
I'm trying to get unmuted here. Can you hear me now?
We got you. Yes, we can.
Okay,
we can
great.
hear you
Thank
now.
you.
Okay. Honorable Halona, could you identify your agents?
I was hoping to get Cheryl Nyazi on the call. I've been not unsuccessful on contacting her this morning. Cheryl Nyazi, are you on the line right now? Gentleman's a chapter president for Cody Canyon right now. I have not been able to contact her this morning.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward with it. The sponsor is Honorable Pernell Halona. Mr. Tai, could you lead us into the record, please?
Chair, this is legislation summary sheet tracking number 0240-21, date November 10th, 2021. The title of the legislation, an action relating to resource and development and budget and finance committees, approving a change in Exhibit D to resolution number CAP-35-18 for Coyote Canyon chapter by deleting certain projects and purchases, and approving the use of funds for the purchase of new equipment and for the chapter parking lot landscape project instead. Purpose of this legislation to approve a change in CAP-35-18 Exhibit D to allow for deletion of 4 items on Exhibit D for Coyote Canyon chapter, and to allow the use of funds for 2 new equipment purchases by the chapter and for the chapter waterline extension project. Budget and Finance has final authority of this legislation, which will be read fully into the record. The sponsor of this legislation is Delegate Pernell Halona. This is tracking number 0240-21, an action relating to resource and development and budget and finance committees, approving a change in Exhibit D to resolution number CAP-35-18 for Coyote Canyon chapter by deleting certain projects and purchases, and approving the use of funds for purchases of new equipment and for the chapter parking lot landscape project instead. Section 1 lists the authority. Section 2 lists its findings, which includes an Exhibit 2, Exhibit 3, and Exhibit 4, and Exhibit 1. Section 3 has the approval, Section 4 has the effective date, and Section 5 has the savings clause. Attaches Exhibit 1, which is the Susquehanna Fund Project Power Line and Chapter Capital Projects Expenditure Plan. Exhibit 2 is the Capital Project Management Department, the Sihasan Project Amendment Certification CAP-3518. Attaches Exhibit 3, the Capital Project Management Department, this is Hassan Project Amendment Certification CAP-3518. Attaches Exhibit 4, the Capital Projects Management Department, the Hassan Project Amendment Certification Chapter 30 CAP-3518. Then you have the first report of the Navajo Nation Legislative Branch Internet Public Review Summary for Legislation 0240-21. It was posted on November 15th, 2021 at 5:25 p.m. The 5-day comment period ended November 20th of 2021. There was no comment supporting this legislation. There was no comments opposing this legislation, and there was no comments or recommendation on this legislation. Chair, that is legislation summary tracking number 024021 read into the record. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second.
Chairman Kellen.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Second by. There a second?
Chair, I second.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. None. Before I go to the sponsor, are there any questions or comments? This legislation goes to Budget and Finance. None. Next. If there's no question, we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote, sir?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay.
Chairman Kellen votes green. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels.
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland.
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart.
He said he votes green, Chairman. He's here.
Okay. Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Motion carries for legislation 0240-21. Thank you, Honorable Halona.
Oh, thank you, honorable members of the RDC committee. I appreciate your vote and your confidence. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Halona, for that. Honorable Freeland, did you sign off on legislation 0228-21?
I didn't, Chairman. I'm actually headed to OLS right now.
Okay. We'll go back to reports at this time. First on the list, we have update report from the Division of Community Development, Office of the Controller, Office of Management and Budget on legislation 0206-21 as it relates to providing updated documents to the legislation. And this legislation is sponsored by Honorable Vice Chair Thomas Walker, Jr. Dr. Yellowman, are you on the call? Bill? Dr. Yellowman?
Good morning, Chair. DCD, I'm still on the call.
Okay, you have the floor. Dr. Yellowman? Dr. Yellowman? This legislation is in reference to Chapter's emergency funds, and this legislation had gone before Council, and it needed updated information for Chapters in order to move this legislation forward. So, Dr. Yellowman, you have the floor. Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Chairman, though, committee members, though, and staff, though. We're to, this was referred back to RDC. We all know there were questions and comments made that we needed to ensure those concerns were addressed. It does have that 30-day time limit, and time is drawing near that 30-day timeline. So if we don't do this today, then the next week, November 30, though, and then of course it goes back to council. They don't for their approval. Okay, I get that's council. So legislative council that's in the event that we don't do the revisit here, I'll address the concerns, and then I'll taking it back to council. Can that be done? Even if we do the revisit and address the concerns, if council doesn't meet by November 30, then what happens to the legislation? That would be my question to Ms. Khan, our counsel on this committee. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your concerns and your question to Ms. Khan. Ms. Khan, your response?
Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair and members of the Resources and Development Committee, in the situation that you're describing, in which a committee has been, legislation has been referred back to a committee and a committee is given a timeline to respond. My recollection is of a situation in the 23rd Navajo Nation Council. The 23rd Navajo Nation Council would allow that particular standing committee the time limit, up to the time limit. And the sponsor of the legislation would wait and allow the standing committee to do its work. And when the time limit approached and is passed, the sponsor of that legislation was allowed to bring the legislation back, whether or not, in this case, whether or not RDC responded or provided the information that was requested. That in this case, RDC would be given a particular time limit in which to act and do the requested work. And the sponsor would wait until that's done. And if it wasn't done within that time period, then the sponsor of the legislation would take it back to, in this case, I believe it, if I'm correct, it's the Nabik Iat that wanted, or was it the council? Anyway, it goes back to the committee or council that referred it, and it continues. I haven't seen a particular situation in which that has, I don't recall a particular situation in the 24th Navajo Nation Council in which that was discussed. Mr. Chair, and I could again consult with Ms. Dana Bobroff, Chief Legislative Counsel, as to whether the timeline that is given must be abided by. Mr. Chair, I hope that was clear. Thank you. I'll go on mute now.
Okay, thank you very much for your response, Ms. Khan. The reason that we wanted Division of Community Development, OMB, and the Controller's Office to provide updated information is that when Council tabled the legislation, we needed updated information so it can move forward for chapters for their emergency funds to use throughout the winter. So at this time, Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Chair.
Are you okay with the response?
Chair.
Yes, Mr. Tahi.
Chair, I'm looking at the legislation that was tabled, and to make I guess a correction is the 30 days is going to expire on November 27th. And the tabling motion that is indicated, the committee report on this legislation, it indicates that legislation 0206-21 has to be brought back to the Navajo Nation Council no later than 30 days to provide ample time for the Division of Community Development and the Office of Management and Budget to produce those updated information. In the tabling motion, it does not indicate that it's going back to NABIC or going back to RDC. So based on this language alone, and Ms. Khan could correct me, is this legislation would die if this if Navajo Nation Council does not bring this back up within that 30 days.
Chairman.
Thank you for that, Mr. Tahi. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, as Mr. Tahi stated that it was tabled for 30 days, which would expire on November 27th. And Alit Awanson case, Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Chair, committee members and staff and legislative council, I appreciate the response. Although I agree that Chief Legislative Council could also support or add to the response from Ms. Khan. Although Mr. Tahi's information input, that's legitimate. For November 27 is 5 days away. That's on Saturday. So it's less likely that council will convene on that day or even before. Although we still have homework, some homework. I'm not exactly sure what the updates include. Updates at Niniki, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I had come to sponsor, and as far as I know, everything in that legislation is updated unless there's, more documents that are needed. And then what do we do if OOC is not on the call, or OMB, ADO, and then we only have BCD on the call, or barely on the call? Dr. Yellerman. So we don't have that ability, lacking the documents or the information or their input. Chair, of course, going along with Mr. Tahi's rationale or his reason for the reason he gave there, that council timeline that then gives us or myself as a sponsor the alternative or the other option to get it redrafted and then get legislation on legislative track again, the same legislation. So I'm open to those kinds of options as well. I think it's very important for our chapters, although the community members. I thought this legislation has been posted for comment some time ago, and it's even in the papers. So I think it's responsible for us as leaders, council, committees to keep our commitment to the people. Emergency we have to go through with that, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Perhaps today, Shananta, you can request a special session for Saturday, the 27th. That's the day that it's supposed to expire. And we can go ahead and sign off on it and perhaps just have a meeting that morning also, just for even till noon. In the meantime, let me go to Ms. Hiako from Speaker's Office.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Resources and Development Committee. This is Melinda from the Speaker's Office. I just wanted to mention in regards to the legislation, as Delegate Walker has stated, not being certain that all the documents that need to be included into the legislation are up to date. I do believe that in working with the legislation, some of the areas that needed to be addressed in terms of equity, and then in terms of allocation balances for what chapters might be in the negative, and then the ones that would be able to then utilize the emergency funding, I think it is a question for the controller and OMB. However, in terms of the other information that was submitted in regards to the purpose of the legislation, where there is updated numbers and the updated information that is needed from DCD, and Dr. Yellowman can correct me if I'm wrong, but this legislation was initially requested, I believe, back in August. And when that request happened, the numbers that were reported or that were given from community development reflected that date, or at least that time frame. And so by the time we were able to assist in getting the legislation drafted fully, it was, I believe, October. And so then there was the request from Office of Legislative Counsel to get another updated information on the balances for chapters because of the new fiscal year that started for the first quarter in October. That's the reason why there was two different submissions of that information for updates for this legislation. And I think some of that kind of got a little mixed up with the overall presentation. And so I just wanted to mention that we did have the documents all reflected for August, and that includes the controller and OMB's memos. However, we were asked to then update it again when the legislation was completely drafted. And so then there were new numbers that came in for this next upcoming fiscal year and the balances for chapters. And so I just wanted to mention that, Chair, if that helps clarify anything. But if, again, anyone else on the line from Controller's Office or OMB can speak to that, or Dr. Yellowman. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you. We do have Dr. Yellowman on the call to provide updates with her staff, Ms. Jim Martin as well. But before that, I'd like to go to Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, thank you. Thank you for this legislation. And I do support it. I do know how important it is. I'm just recollecting what comments were made during this council session. And, it was about the argument was a matter of equity. But for myself as a representative on this committee, I have to represent 31 chapters, and I have to speak for 31 chapters. I have to advocate for 31 chapters. So, if anything, Eastern Agency has the most amount of chapters, and and for the comments that were made towards particularly 2 or 3 from Eastern, I know for a fact our chapters were out there working during the pandemic, and that's why there was negative balances. And I know that they were serving as points of distributions, or what were referred to as pods. Chapters we remember something, we heavily relied on PEP. If it weren't for our PEP workers, our chapters would not have been able to accomplish and help our people the way that they were able to. And I really want to stress that, because I know for myself and knowing other chapters in our region, our chapters were open and our chapters were providing services. And yes, they ran out of money, which was unfortunate, but they continued to provide those services despite. And I can name one chapter, one of my 8 chapters especially. Unfortunately, they continue to still lose community members to this day, and it's unfortunate that our PEP have to dig graves, and it's unfortunate that happens, and it's still continuing today. But that's a reminder of what we were facing, what we had faced during this pandemic, and what we continue to face today. This COVID is still amongst us. This COVID is still taking our people's lives, unfortunately, and we should put all of that discussion aside, because remember, we're still in the declaration of an emergency. We still are in the midst of that. We're still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, the Delta variant or any other variant, and just to see the numbers in New Mexico and to see our continuing numbers on the nation. I'm concerned still, and we shouldn't talk about equity, or we should talk about accountability when bottom line is, we are having to, our chapters are the front lines. Our chapters are the ones that are out there for our people as well, and we got to do our best to support them. So I support Che's legislation. If there's a petition, Che, I'm here in Windrock. I'll sign it right today, this morning, if I have to. But I really want this legislation to go back to the council. And I want us to fully understand that as leaders and from our respective legislative areas, we got to support our chapters, because we can't, our chapters have been there for our people and continue to be there for our people. And we just got to remind ourselves of that, Shananta. So, Eddie, Chairman, I just want to make that comment and express my concerns this morning and on this legislation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Freeland, for your concern and your statement as well. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, since you're the sponsor, you can request for a special session. And also there will be a petition that most likely will be sent out by the 27th, perhaps ask for 9 o'clock in the morning. That should work. I understand it's a Thanksgiving weekend, but we can take care of this for our chapters. So if we can have all the amendments prepared as well, also with your request.
Chairman Gallant.
Honorable Begay.
Posing the question to our legislative council. I believe, if I'm correct, petitions, I don't know if we will be able to get enough signature, but petition process is when the delegate is requesting for a special session, because that's the council, the key council member, to get enough signature, which calls for a special session, which is 13. And I believe the speaker also has the authority to call a special session without a petition being done. So maybe that could be utilized if I'm correct. But that's another process that we can do with the 24 hours notice, is that maybe Wednesday afternoon that we can call for a special session. Chairman, maybe legislative council can clarify that for me. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Begay, for that. Ms. Khan.
Mr. Chair, this is Khan, and I am just now going to the Title II and finding that particular section with regard to the authority of who has the authority to call a special session. And just a second, here it is. This is title. May I proceed, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Khan.
Okay, this is Title II, Section 162, and this has to do with the number, time, and duration of council sessions. And paragraph B reads, special sessions of the Navajo Nation Council may be called upon reasonable and timely notice to all council delegates by the Speaker of the Navajo Nation Council, acting on written petition of a majority of all council delegates, or request by written message from the president. So with regard to the speaker's ability, the speaker may call the special session, but he would be acting upon written petition of the majority of all council delegates, in which case it is that form that you are used to, the petition going around getting the requisite number 13 of council delegate signature. It is by that authority that the speaker can call a special session. That is in conjunction with that petition, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I am going on mute now.
Thank you very much for that. And special session written petition given that speaker will act on the petition from the Navajo Nation Council where there are 13 signatures on there, and it can go forward from there. So Joe Konich Yeltra, are there any comments or questions on this request for a special session again before I hand it over to Dr. Yellowman?
Chairman, this is Thomas Walker.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Yes, I will email the speaker and his staff and put forth that request. So put that in motion. Petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Vice Chair Walker. With that, Dr. Yellowman, you have the floor.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And good morning again, honorable members of RDC. This is Pearl Yellowman, and I am joined with several members of our team from Division of Community Development, Ms. Sunlasa Jim Martin, and our senior accountant, Mr. Lydell Davis. I appreciate the conversation and the opportunity to report. As far as the exhibit for this legislation, all 110 chapters balances for the latest emergency funds are current, and that will remain. Our report this morning focuses on the responses to some of the concerns that were brought up. Some of the concerns that were brought up, as mentioned earlier, was the term equity. So I'll speak to that and give an example. And the other was supporting, what is our message in supporting the chapters who've overspent. But again, we can also demonstrate that these chapters do represent pods or points of distribution, and we can explain in our written report what some of the responsibilities and duties they had during COVID last year and still remain. Many of our chapters are still standing as points of distribution and have not stood down. Lastly, we will continue to prepare any additional preparations needed to help support this legislation and to help support our sponsor, Delegate Thomas Walker. So I'll move into the term that was used as far as equity. The total amount requested is $1,851,335.34. The amount being requested for Eastern Agency chapters is $746,504. And this is to my example. That is the greatest or the highest requested amount. The lowest requested amount is from Central Agency chapters at $132,993. The difference between that and the term that was brought up as equity is that the central government or the central agency represents 16 chapters, 2 of which those chapters were in the negative or below the 25,000 requested threshold. One of those chapters served as a point of distribution and did remain open throughout the pandemic, and that was the Chinle Agency. To bring those 2 chapters up to the 25,000 threshold would be the added amount of 50,000. If you minus 50,000 from the requested amount of 132,993, the remaining 82,993 would be distributed among the 14 remaining chapters. And that's how that 132,993 would be distributed among the central agency. I'll give you an example of Eastern Agency. Eastern Agency is requesting or in need of $746,504. There are 31 chapters in Eastern Agency. 8 of those chapters were below 0. And of the 8 chapters, 3 of them served as points of distribution and still remain active in doing so. Of those 8 chapters that are in need or below 0, their total requested amount would be $228,955 to cover 8 chapters below 0. The remaining 23 chapters would then receive the following amount: $663,315. So in terms of equity, Central Agency represents 16 chapters. Eastern represents 31 chapters. In Eastern Agency, 8 of those chapters were below 0. The remaining 23 chapters in Eastern Agency would require less than the 25,000 threshold. There's no evidence of inequity other than the total number of chapters represented in all 5 agencies. So we believe that our numbers and our requests still stand. We also can provide a breakdown or narrative as to the roles of what these chapters served as points of distribution and how they continue to serve as points of distribution for their chapters. As I mentioned, some of our chapters are still standing and have not stood down. The other concern was that we were bailing out chapters, but when the Navajo Nation entered into a major declaration, all chapters provided their emergency service plans, and all chapters provided services during the declaration. And as I mentioned, we, if anything, the chapters helped us as a whole nation, and we're not bailing any chapters out. They actually helped us, and it's actually reversed. They probably did a substantial amount of work for us and for the Navajo Nation. And we'll provide some narratives as to what caused some chapters to go into the negative. And as I mentioned in the last Nabikiakip meeting, that this is possibly our 4th attempt at this. Our first attempt was one of the very first legislations when we went into the major declaration. There was a Nabi meeting at the Doty building where we asked for an increase in funds for the chapters to begin mobilizing for COVID. And we requested at the 25,000 threshold. That question came up again as to what is the determining factor for 25,000. This number 25,000 actually comes from DEM, Department of Emergency Management. And if needed in the future, it could be reconsidered. But since the pandemic, we have been using the 25,000 threshold. Again, that was at the early stages of the pandemic. The second time was when we received legislation CS 73-20, and many of the chapters submitted for reimbursements for fuel sources, firewood, emergency supplies, and on the November 20th, unfortunately, we were denied of those funds under CS 73-20 and reverted funds to hardship. We tried again with Delegate Eugene So. That would have been our third attempt, and unfortunately that was vetoed. And now this brings us to our fourth attempt here. There was questions as to what would happen if we do not resolve this. Well, some of our chapters that did help our communities would be flagged for potential audit consideration as to why their emergency funds remained in the negative. So we want to assist our chapters because we do have evidence that they supported the Navajo Nation and they supported their communities during the pandemic. And we do not want to put them at risk for any type of consideration. We have ASC working on some communications as to what we could do to help avoid that with the Auditor Brown's office. So, Chair, that would be where we would provide some responses for those concerns that were brought up on the last NABI meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Let me go to Mr. Bial from OMB.
Good morning, members of the RDC, Mr. Chair, and all the listeners on the call on this particular meeting. From OMB, we sent an email the middle part of last week to Dr. Yellowman, Mr. Davis, Elizabeth Begay, the ASC, about matters that we thought needed to be addressed before the council comes back into session on this particular subject. And one of them was we recommended that DCD use one database to calculate the amounts and the exhibits. Because you remember in the legislation before 0206, there was some confusion because, as the Speaker's office mentioned as well, the numbers changed because the figures changed depending on what month ending was being used. So that was one area that caused the confusion. And I now hear Dr. Yellowman saying they have numbers that they will stand on. Number two, we recommended that DCD get advice from DOJ, OOC, and perhaps the Auditor General on ways to better monitor and control chapter expenditures so that they don't get into significant deficits. The discussion that I recall at the last council session, a number of delegates raised concern about why or how is it that these chapters can go into such deficits. from relatively small amounts and then to large amounts. Who's controlling it? Who's monitoring it? And if no one is, or if whatever tools are being used to do that monitoring, perhaps they need to be increased and enhanced. Now, from OMB, we can't tell DCD how to do it or what to do. That's why we recommended that they get some advice from DOJ, OOC, and Auditor General, so that that amendment, if there's any, could be incorporated into 0206 when it comes up again. And finally, that DOJ ought to be involved, because some of these matters, as you've already discussed, are legal questions. And furthermore, DOJ would help with crafting whatever amendments are going to be proposed in the best way, both for legality purposes as well as propriety. And Mr. Chair, members of RDC, those were the comments we gave to DCD, and we haven't heard a response yet. So what Dr. Yellowman is saying this morning is the first update we've been hearing. Mr. Chair, committee members, that's the input from OMB. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bial. Do we have anybody from the Controller's Office on the call? Willie? None? Kushina?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Natasha Damon from the General Accounting Controller's Office. I'm filling in for Mr. Willie this morning, and I'm trying to get all the information I can, and I'm not sure what type of information is required from our office. That's all I can update on.
Well, thank you, Natasha. And what is your last name?
Damon.
Damon. Thank you very much, Ms. Damon. Normally what we do is when a request for a report from DCD, OOC, and OMB, we allow them to present what information they have. In this case, it's legislation 0206-21, and what was requested was updated information that chapters need in order to receive these emergency funds at their chapters. So I don't know how long you have been listening, Ms. Damon, but do you have any updated information to report?
I've been listening since the beginning on the website, but I called in after the reports were starting. All I can update on is that the UUFB number hasn't changed since the fall session. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Damon, for that. Honorable members of RDC, are there any comments or questions?
Chairman Freeland.
Honorable Freeland, go ahead.
Chairman, thank you. Thank you to Che Ginana. Thank you, Dr. Yellowman, and thank you, Mr. Bial, for those updates. I'm glad we're having this discussion. I really feel like we should have had this discussion at council, and just to hear what we just heard, I think it's really telling, of information, correct information being disseminated versus assumptions or any other way of looking at it, because we shouldn't say it's a matter of equity, or we shouldn't say we need to, yes, we do need to hold our chapters accountable, but we shouldn't put that in there as well, because when we're out there, when we're working with our chapters, we know for a fact our chapters are out there being open and servicing our people. And once again, I'm going to say that for us in Eastern, we're not stopping. We haven't stopped since March because of the pandemic. We are still in a major declaration. And I really am hopeful that we can get a special session by Saturday. I'll definitely call in because that's how much this legislation means and how important this legislation means to our chapters. And the 31 are in need. The 31 could use it. The 31 could service the people with it. So I just wanted to mention that, Chairman. And if I can, I don't know if I can make a motion to send it back, but I'll go ahead and I'm ready to vote on it, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Honorable Freeland. And since we received the report on this here from DCD and OMB, I didn't get a motion and a second, and I apologize for that. So could we have a motion and a second?
A motion, Chair Freeland.
Okay, second by? Second?
Chairman, I second.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Now, report Eliagi. Are there any comments or questions on the report by DCD as well as OMB? Honorable Vice Chair Walker, are you okay with the report, what we received this morning? Moving forward now?
Yes, Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I jumped in my truck and now driving down the road, heading to Winter Rock, of course. Needed, let's say 0206-21 amendment at the time, the advisor or legislative advisement on 2000 that way at least RDC able to help the legislation through need be. I don't know who would want to offer that advisement or recommendation. So then ready to present the again and address concerns. And I do agree with my Che from Eastern, Honorable Freeland, on having this discussion at the councils. Should have done that in this manner. Or not okay to give us an opportunity to sort of retreat and then think about it, sleep on it, and look at it again. But the aim is to make it a solid and clear legislation for the people to eat. So, other amendments, the advising or recommending amendments
So, yeah, isolation kuda pansidi isolation and Chairman, back to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Ms. Khan, we heard from our Vice Chair, and we would like your recommendation, advisement as far as creating amendments by Saturday with the updated information from Division of Community Development, Ms. Khan, or if there's any other amendments that need to be brought forward as well, Ms. Khan.
Mr. Chair, this is Mariana Khan, and I've just now read the document that I had requested from the Office of Legislative Services with regard to what exactly the Navajo Nation Council had asked for with regard to this tabling motion, and what so the language, and then that will help the report or the suggested amendments that the Resources and Development Committee would propose. Now, I thank Julissa Johnson very much for sending me the text of that legislation. The tabling motion itself is very short. The language is just one sentence, and I will read that to you. This is the tabling motion that was done at the Navajo Nation Council on, let's see, October 28th. And the tabling motion is motion to table legislation 0206-21 and bring back to the Navajo Council no later than 30 days to provide ample time for the Division of Community Development and the Office of Management and Budget to produce updated information. So there are two divisions that were a division in the Office of Management and Budget that were given a particular task. In this case, today during the report, you heard from both the Division of Community Development and the Office of Management and Budget. My suggestion is that the division director of the Division of Community Development provide a written statement along the lines of what she had presented today. And that would be provided to the Navajo Nation Council. The second one is Mr. Dominic Bial also spoke with you as to his the information that he had wanted, and that was the extent that he provided. He did not have updated information that was requested. However, he had, from what I gathered, questions and concerns, and for him to also put those his contribution into a form of a memorandum to be given to the Navajo Nation Council. It is those two, the Division of Community Development and the Office of Management and Budget, that are specifically mentioned in this tabling motion. Now, Resources and Development Committee has itself had concerns, and I did not get all of those concerns, but it is, I do not think that the Resources and Development Committee would necessarily need to make an amendment to the legislation with regard to those two memos that I am suggesting be generated. A memo from the Division of Community Development giving its statement that there are that the numbers are updated. That's what I heard anyway. And Mr. Dominic Bial's statement that he had 3 suggestions, which he explained to you. I do not see those as amendment legislation. Those are reports given to the Navajo Nation Council. Mr. Chair, if there is other than those two, which I do not believe are amendments, they would be given in written form to the speaker who would distribute that to the council. Unless the Resources and Development Committee has particular amendments that they want to make to the legislation, then I would draft those particular amendments, but I didn't hear any particular amendment. I heard a discussion of the need for legislation 206-21 and the need for those particular chapters to receive the funds that they had identified for them. And the division director for the Division of Community Development stated why she explained why there was differences between the numbers for Eastern Agency and Central. She explained that, and it is my hope that she will put this information into her memo very clearly as to why the numbers are different between the agencies. That is my, that would be very helpful in addressing the tabling motion. But then again, if I'm trying to find out if there's any amendment that you as Resources and Development Committee want to the legislation. Any place, as you all know, the legislation is written, and in any particular place in the legislation, page 1, line 15, that sort of amendment, if given the information, I can draft the amendment. But what I see from the purpose of the tabling motion was to have the Division of Community Development provide the information that you, Resources and Development Committee, heard today from the division director, which I hope she will put into her memo. Mr. Chair, if there's any particular amendment to a particular part of the resolution that you would want me to draft, I can do that. But what I see as the purpose of the tabling motion was for information. And if the two entities, Community Development and OMB, will provide that information, or why, in Mr. Bial's case, why he couldn't provide the information, then put that in memo very clearly, and then that would be provided to the council. Mr. Chair, I hope I'm not belaboring the point, but I've just, at this point, I see two memos, and if the Resources and Development Committee wishes me to make an amendment, I will make the amendment in the usual form, page 3, line something, or along those lines, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I hope I have not confused anybody. I'll go on mute now.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Khan, for that. And you stand correct that on October 28th, I motioned to table this legislation 0206-21 based on the discussions, debate. The numbers had changed, and that is why we needed updated information. So, Ms. Khan, based on that, we received a report today from Dr. Yellowman, and she did provide us some updated numbers today. And if we could use those numbers as to the exhibits, perhaps we can have that amendments prepared by Saturday. And Dr. Yellowman, if you would provide your memo to the Navajo Nation Council on these changes, whether it's exhibits or budget numbers, which agencies, which chapters, we would certainly appreciate that, as well as a memorandum to the Office of Management and Budget as well, their written statement on the changes that we just mentioned, the numbers for chapters, and we would also like that same memorandum's written statement sent to the Resources and Development Committee, Dr. Yellowman. So with that, let me just go back to Dr. Yellowman for that request. Dr. Yellowman.
Thank you, Chair. And can you hear me okay?
Yes, proceed.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Khan. Thank you very much for those comments and advisement. So we'll do that. We'll prepare the written statement that covers the concerns regarding equity. Also from OMB, the concerns on the monitoring, as stated, to request advisement from DOJ or OOC. The other, Chair, that I failed to mention on that October 28th conversation on this legislation, the presiding chair of the October 28th meeting stated that I reported this was a 50-50 formula, and we want to provide points of clarification that this is not a 50-50 formula process. And so we want to provide when 50-50 is utilized and when it's not, or how 50-50 is utilized, and in this case, it's not being utilized. It's need-based. Often, sometimes the use for 50-50 formula is when there is a total pre-allocated amount, and that is distributed through the 50-50 formula. There's no pre-allocated amount. These numbers were calculated by need, and the end number is the 1.8 million. And we are not requesting for 50-50 formula to be to distribute that 1.8 million. So we'll provide clarification or justification for not utilizing the 50-50 formula. So those were some of the main concerns. We'll touch on the monitoring aspect, and we do have members of ASC, our department manager, Ms. Sanlatha Jim Martin, on the call as well, who can touch on the monitoring aspect. So, Chair, we concur and will prepare for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Also, when you do provide that memorandum, your written statement, could you make that clarification on that statement for council as well? And when you do send it out, make sure that you send it to the office of the speaker as well. And that was requested by Ms. Siaka, who is on the call with us this morning. And before I go to Honorable Begay, what I will do is Ms. Siako has a question, and then I'll go to Honorable Begay. Siako?
Good morning, Chairman Nez and members of Resources and Development Committee. This is Melinda from the Speaker's Office. The only question I had, of course, is if, as you mentioned, that the Division of Community Development could also share the memo information working with OMB and the Controller's Office. The other question that we had on our end is just to confirm on whether there would be any amendments in particular. And if there's not going to be, that would be something that Speaker Damon would like to be updated on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Yellowman, did you hear that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Kealan Begay Jr., you have the floor. Press *6, Honorable Begay. Honorable Begay. Let me come back to Honorable Begay when he gets back on the call here. Ms. Somlotza, Jim Martin. Ms. Jim Martin. Press star 6.
This is Somlotza Jim Martin. Can you hear me?
Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Shannon. This is, again, Somlotza Jim Martin, ASC Department Manager. I am at a meeting right now. Let me try to get caught up on the question. Would you be able to repeat it for me, Chair Nez? Thank you.
Dr. Yellowman said that you have information to provide to leadership.
Okay, thank you. I understand the question now. Right now, we have all the ASC offices that conduct monitoring with their chapters that they are assigned to. And unfortunately, right now, our MIP system is not set up to give us alerts. However, our ASC staff, they are assisting us in that monitoring. They do track all the chapter budgets, including the emergency funds. And also we do training and orientation to our chapter officials so that the chapter officials can assist in monitoring with the chapter staff. Right now, the ASC staff, they conduct monthly compliance reviews for all the chapter budgets and also work with the chapter staff to help them in their reconciliations with their bank statements. It is a manual process right now, and our chapter ASC, our chapter staff and our ASC staff does monitor manually and through on-site visits with the chapter staff. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what I can share right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Begay, are you on the call? Mr. Tahi, is Honorable Begay back on the call?
Chair, I don't see the Delegate Begay on the line. I think he's still traveling and he lost his signal.
Okay, thank you. OMB, Mr. Bial, are you okay with receiving a statement from Dr. Yellowman? Is that all you need? Is there anything else that you need, Mr. Bial? Mr. Bial? Somehow everybody's losing phone reception.
Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm back on.
Okay. Did you hear my question, sir?
Yes. From what I understand from the committee so far, as well as the report from Dr. Yellowman, she's going to work on a written memo that explains this whole subject matter, what changes, if any, are going to be provided, and to verify all of the budget information and so on and so forth. And I heard you say that her memo would also be provided to OMB. So upon receipt of that memo, then we can do our follow-up memo, either to concur with her remarks and comments and the substance of her message, or to advise the committee as well as the council of any remaining questions or matters that need to be addressed. Mr. Chair, committee members, that's my understanding at this point, and we will be ready to do a memo accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bial. We'll just wait on Dr. Yellowman to send out their written statement to your office, to the council, RDC, and Speaker's office, and then you can also make your remarks, whether you concur or provide your advisement to the Navajo Nation Council on the changes explaining the budgeting information. So thank you for that, Mr. Bial. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? Honorable Vice Chair Walker, are you good with that?
Chairman and committee members and everyone that's on the call talking about the legislation here, table legislation. The steps to take, the next steps, I guess we can begin that process and consult with everyone if need be, certainly the speaker. Ito Bebnaho now Shinto. So I appreciate the discussion here. We're all in this sort of problem-solving mode this morning. I appreciate that. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. We are in the process of a problem-solving mode. Chapters, but everybody is helping today, so that's very positive today. We're optimistic that we'll have some of these prepared by Saturday. So yeah. Are there any other comments or questions from RDC? None? We'll go ahead.
Mr.
Yes?
Chair, this is Mariana Khan.
Khan, go ahead.
Thank you. I make a specific request to Dr. Yellowman with regard to her memorandum. I asked Ms. Dr. Yellowman to specifically identify exhibits that will need to be amended so that they are identified ahead of time and that the new exhibits will be ready to attach the amendments that will need to be made. And then Dr. Yellowman, please identify any particular amendment would be made to the body of the legislation. If there's particular totals that need to be changed, to please identify those amounts that need to be changed so that the amendments can reflect the identified changes that Dr. Yellowman sees. And of course, the same goes for Mr. Dominic Beal, and that the Office of Legislative Counsel through Chief Legislative Counsel, and that those amendments, the whole memo and potential identified amendments be forwarded so that everybody is working together and that we have those, and the Office of Legislative Counsel has a chance to prepare the language for the amendments before that meeting. That is the request from the Office of Legislative Counsel. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Yellowman and Dominic Beal. Thank you. I'll go on mute now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan, for reiterating your request to the Division of Community Development as well as Office of Management and Budget. And in your statement, you did request to identify exhibits that need to be amended by the Navajo Nation Council. So if you would identify those changes, we would appreciate it, and we would be prepared to make those amendments on Saturday if there is a special session with enough 13 signatures for that day to approve this legislation 0206-21. And thank you for that, Ms. Khan. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? I hear none. I will go ahead and vote to accept the report. I believe we took care of what we need to. Before there's a special session, we would like all these updated information. But we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Chairman, I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay, how do you vote, sir? Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland? Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay? Honorable Freeland? We have a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. We'll accept the report from DCD, OMB, and OOC. Thank you very much. Next, report from the Division of Economic Development on the railroad tracks and the aftermath of the closure of the Navajo Generating Station. Presenter from DED, Mr. Anthony Perry. Are you on the call, sir?
Good morning, Chair. This is Tony Perry. I'm on the line.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perry. You have 20 minutes, sir.
You can hear me clearly, Chair?
Mr. Perry, could you turn up your volume? We could barely hear you.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. This is Tony Perry from Project Development Department with Economic Development. I can provide a brief summary of what has been done to date on the former NGS facility and premise. Before I'd like to start, I want to make sure that a summary was given to Mr. Tahi this morning, and hopefully that's been distributed. And that summary provides what I plan to present. But first of all, there is a team that's been put together, and myself and Elaine Young, director from Small Business Development Department, is involved, along with Mr. Woolley. So at the same time, we have
Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you say you sent a summary report to Mr. Tahi?
Yes, I did. This morning.
When did you send it? Did you resend it to leadership as well? Because he hasn't received it yet.
It went to his email address.
Could you send it to me as well, and also Ms. Yako?
Yeah, I'll do that. Right now, or you'll wait a few minutes?
Yes, we would like to have it as soon as you can send it.
Okay, can you wait for a minute? Just hang on.
Yes.
Okay, Chair.
Mr. Perry,
Yes, I'm here.
did you send it?
Yes, I did send it. Chair, did you receive it?
I have not received it yet.
Hey, just hang on. Just hang on. Sorry.
Chair,
We did receive it. Yes, Mr. Ty.
I was going to let you know that I sent it just now, so you guys should receive it too.
Yes, I just now received it too, so thank you. Mr. Perry, you may proceed. Mr. Perry? Mr. Perry?
Sorry, Chair. I'm back.
Okay. Go ahead and proceed.
Okay, good.
Yes, we got it.
Good morning, Chair and members, the honorable members of the RDC committee. The summary was given, and I'll be going through that. But just keep in mind that there's two divisions involved. One, Division of Economic Development. The other is Division of Natural Resource. The contact person with Division of Natural Resource is Mr. Jason John. He's kind of the lead person that's involved in the correspondence between the Navajo Nation and SRP. Just for your information. The summary, as provided, has to relate to the decommissioning of the Navajo generating station. On November 17th, just last week, we had a telephone discussion with all the chapter officials that are related to the area there that have a impact. And this session was set up by Delegate Herman Daniels. And it had to relate to the rail line from Black Mesa to Slichee to the Navajo Generation Station. The Canarelli line has been removed. There has been some initial discussion with to remove the rail line, but because of the pandemic, that discussion was put on hold. We are developing cost analysis to remove the rail line versus future benefit. And as you know, the future benefit was geared more toward tourism-based development, trying to take advantage of the existing rail line that's there. And eventually we would do a follow-up meeting with the 4 chapters. And those chapters include Shanto, Tonalia, Kabito, and Slichee. So that ongoing discussion will continue as time permits, and I believe it will be sometime soon. So last Thursday was the last week was the initial discussion. The NGS warehouse, that facility has been turned over to the nation. This is the warehouse that's right in the front of the premise there. It's a 52,000 square foot facility, and the warehouse does not have any water, sewer, power, or gas. So it's kind of like an empty building with no infrastructure in place. So that's part of the initial phase of exchange between the Navajo Nation and NGS SRP. So in fact, a keys was given to the division. and that keys is available for us to go in and out. And there were some plans to look at different alternatives, different options to utilize the warehouse. One was taking advantage of possibly manufacturing boats, repairing boats. The other was maybe change it to an incubator facility. And so those concept and discussion are being looked into. So that was given to us because it was a separate building away from the main premise. The main premise being where all dismantling is taking place, salvaging and the three stacks that were removed. The additional building has been potentially identified for use, and there were some assets that have been identified to be given to the nation, and these assets are what has been arranged again with division and also division of natural resource. Again, resources taking the lead since the lease was more between the SRP was more of mineral related, and so we're kind of taking working hand in hand with division of natural resource. So those assets that were identified to possibly be given to the nation as time permits, meaning that depending on the phases of dismantling, some will be given to the nation quicker or later, depending on the work. So those assets, retained asset, includes the road, the administration building, the warehouse that I kind of made reference to, the maintenance building, the engine house, the railroad dispatch building, and the parking lots. So those were what has been identified as asset that can be given to the nation. But again, the dismantling, the salvaging of the premise there is maybe a long-term process. And although they're working on it, but it's taking some time. And I think there's some timelines involved, and certain properties will be given to the nation as time permits and how far they're moving with the cleanup. The current decommission of NGS, as you know, pandemic has impacted everything, including this the decommissioning. So there were some setbacks that were in fact impacted the timelines, and hopefully we're all back on track soon. The larger facilities, the smokestack and the main generating center, have been all dismantled, crushed, and removed. But all the remains are still at the site there. If you look in the second page, and then the assets to be returned is what I made reference to. And what needs to happen now is that there's a lot of interest on the railroad tracks. Either keep it or dismantle it. And so what we plan to do was to undertake a feasibility studies to see what kind of development can happen, keeping it or not, taking those cost-benefit ratio and determine what's the best interest. As you know, that our meeting last week with the chapter leadership, they kind of had some pros and cons, and that's what we'll be looking at also. We are continuing to monitor how far the dismantling is taking place. There are some buildings that were not impacted at all by the removal and demolition of the smokestack. So there's some potential asset that the nation might be interested in. And so that's kind of a brief summary of where we're at in the dismantling and the railroad track, Chair and members of the RDC.
Mr. Perry, are you done with your report, sir?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second.
Chair, motion, Stewart.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Second by
Freeland.
Honorable Freeland, thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the report? Kitchen and I hear none. None. We'll go ahead and put it to a vote. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Chair, I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay? Honorable Daniels?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My call dropped, so I had to call back in. Apologize. First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Perry for updating the Resources and Development Committee on the railroad track.
Honorable Daniels?
Yes.
Honorable Daniels? I don't know how much of the report that you missed or when you lost your phone reception, but there's a motion and a second, and we had gone to go ahead and vote on the report unless if there's the motioning party wishes to withdraw. Naiden, were you going to ask a question?
Mr. Chair, it was only a comment. So, but I agree with the report and also the update. So I vote green on the report. So, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Daniels. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay? None.
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yes, Honorable Daniels.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And you reported the being the oversight the Resources and Development Committee meet Linigi question days so the Untitled Chapters and also the 3 chapters Analia Kaibato they had a meeting on the railroad track and Mr. Perry reported the assets again the buildings and maybe perhaps down the road maybe we can do a tour. So we can so I don't know Peabody so they did a tour so Peabody site. So how should we Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. That is a good idea to have that tour and visit the NGS site as well as the railroad tracks. We'll put it on the agenda for approval and go out there and visit them, and also perhaps the chapter officials at your requested locations. And Abiga, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll be whole.
And I believe we're done. Honorable Freeland, did you sign off on legislation 0228-21?
I did, Chairman. Thank you.
Did you want to entertain that legislation or wait till next?
I'll do it, Chairman.
Or, go ahead. You want to go ahead and move on it? Honorable Freeland? Honorable Freeland?
Yeah, Chairman, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, so you signed off on the legislation?
Yeah, I did. I did, Chairman.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Tahi, could you read this into the record, sir?
Chair members of RDC, you have legislative summary sheet tracking number 0228-21, date September 22nd, 2021. Titled the resolution, proposed Navajo Nation Council resolution and action relating to Resource and Development Committee, Navigate Committee, and the Navajo Nation Council approving the proposed consent decree regarding the closed Fort Wingate Depot activity. Purpose. The purpose of this legislation is to approve the proposed consent decree regarding the closed Fort Wingate Depot activity attached as Exhibit A and authorize the President of the Navajo Nation to execute the same. Your chair members of RDC, Navigate Committee has final authority on this legislation. This legislation is sponsored by Edmund Yazzie, sponsored by Mark A. Freeland, tracking number 0228-21, an action relating to Resource and Development Committee and Navigate Committee approving the proposed consent decree regarding the closed Fort Wingate Depot activity. In Section 1, outlists the authorities. Section 2 lists the findings, which is attached as Exhibit A. And Section 3 has the approving the proposed consent decree regarding the closed Fort Wingate Depot activity. Attaches Exhibit A, which is the Fort Wingate Depot activity draft consent decree, clean draft 5-31-2011 in the United States District Court for the District of New Mexico. Then you have the first summary sheet, the Navajo Nation Legislative Branch Internet Public Review Summary. It was posted on November 4th, 2021 at 5:05 p.m. The 5-day comment period ended November 9th, 2021. There was no comment supporting this legislation. There was no comments opposing this legislation. There was no comments or recommendation on this legislation. Chair, that is legislation 0228-21 read into the record. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tahi, for reading that. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second.
Motion, this is Daniels.
Honorable Daniels, thank you. Second by
Stewart.
Honorable Stewart, thank you. Honorable members of RDC, this legislation moves on to Navigate Committee for final authority. Are there any questions, comments? I hear none, so we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Chairman, I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay? Honorable Daniels?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you, Pro Tem Speaker. Yeah. Honorable Begay? We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting.
Chairman, Kiel votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Kiel and Begay votes green. The vote changes to 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. As I stated, this legislation moves on to Navigate for final authority. And thank you to our co-sponsor, Honorable Freeland.
Oh, no, Chairman, thank you.
So next on the agenda, Shannon and I were at the close of meeting. Any other announcements? Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Diego. Katsadal dos zando dada hosya. Sanan Ido honest chodaisanos agi. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chair, I motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Walker. Second by
Freeland.
Honorable Freeland. Any comments, questions? None. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay? Honorable Daniels?
I vote in favor.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay?
Chairman Calvert's green.
Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. We are officially adjourned at 11:56 a.m. You all be safe out there. Yeah, God bless you all.
Oh, see you guys later.